morning, everybody. I am off to work right now, but I wanted to show you a little bit of my outfit. For reasons, I am doing something with my youngest sister, Rachel, later, and it's gonna be so much fun. I have not done any more reading because I edited Friday's video yesterday, but I definitely intend to finish Kushal's Avatar today. So that's gonna be happening. And then I get to start a new book. Okay, bye! Guess what, guys? Rachel and I are gonna go and watch Cursed Child again. I get to see it second time with the new cast, which is very, very exciting, and I'm so looking forward to it. And I'm so can't wait to watch it again. Woo! Hufflepuffs represent. Clearly, outfit. Anyway, so I was lucky enough to be called some tickets today, and it's gonna be so much fun to watch the show all over again. Cannot wait to absorb it even better this time. It's gonna be so good. So many people are gonna be coming out tonight. It's gonna be great. We're now in Times Square. Times Square! We just got out of seeing part 1 of Cursed Child. Me for the second time, Rachel for the first time. So much fun just seeing the entire story again. The effects are amazing. They really are. And I think this new cast, or some of them are new cast, are really good too. And I forgot how much I enjoyed the themes that they tried to explore in this story. It's not perfect, and there are definitely a lot of elements that feel very fanfic, but there are a lot of themes too that really touch on things that I really enjoy about the Harry Potter world, and I think that's great. So now we're waiting in Times Square because there was this announcement that something is supposed to happen at 10:45. So we're all just hanging out and we're just waiting to see what's gonna go on. So we'll find out. Morning, friends! As you probably already know by now, Rachel and I went to go and see Cursed Child again. Well, again for me, a first time for Rachel. We saw part 1 yesterday. It was really, really fun, and I was excited to get a chance to see the new cast. I still think they were a great cast, and I still love the production, and the story still gave me the feels because of the themes, like I said, and I cannot wait to see part 2. But I'm actually here, well, first of all, to show you my pseudo Hogwarts student outfit, but also because I need to talk about what I read. So I finished Kushal's Avatar yesterday, and that book was really good. I don't think it's my favorite of the series. I think it's because the actual plot itself is very different from the first 2 books, but I did love being with Phaedra and her companions all over again, and I did love seeing a resolution to a lot of things that have been building up since book 1. So, and now I'm excited to read the next trilogy. But I wanted to mention that I am reading Into the Crooked Place by Alexandra Christou, which I am very, very excited about. We'll update you. Yay, we're here for night 2. Day 2. Day 2. Rach, how do you feel? Rach, on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you? 15. Then remember, if I'm harsh with you, it's only because you're doing it wrong. Hello friends! I am doing a terrible job updating you of what I am reading for the Owls Readathon. Granted, I have been very busy with like a random assortment of things. The Friends pop-up, which you guys saw, the Cursed Child for the second time, which you also saw, and obviously my trip to Banff with my sisters. But quickly, I'm going to run through the stuff I finished. So I think I mentioned this already, but just in case I didn't, Kushal's Avatar by Jacqueline Carey, which is the last book in this first trilogy about Phaedra Delaunay. So good. I really enjoyed it. It's not my favorite of the series, but I like the direction it took, and I like the new characters we get introduced to, and I obviously love how it ended. I think it's really interesting to read this entire series. Like, I have very distinct thoughts about each book. And in this one in particular, it's interesting because there's such a huge time jump and Phaedra is such a different character in it. And so it was a really good read. I'm glad I finally finished the first trilogy, even though it was a little later than I expected. And then I also finished reading Into the Crooked Place by Alexandra Christo, which unfortunately I didn't love as much as I wanted to. I really, really enjoyed her debut last year, but this one kind of fell flat for me. It was a little too reminiscent of other stories without actually standing out on its own. I felt like a lot of things were really underdeveloped about it, and like the pacing was a little bit weird in it. So I didn't necessarily love this one, and I'm really sad about that because I wanted to. This one is a story about 4 individual characters. There's Tavia, Wesley, Karam, and Saxony, and they each have a different sort of place in this world. Wesley is an underboss, Tavia is a magic busker, Saxony is a crafter, which means she has magic and can create new magic, and then Karam is like a warrior who protects crafters. And they have to team up in order to take down the kingpin of this world. And even though that sounds really, really good, it's kind of sad because it didn't work out for me. I think it's because I didn't feel like this was a story with an ensemble cast that was as well done as many others that I've read this year. That's part of it, and I also just felt like it felt too cobbled together, I guess, and there was nothing really drawing me in personally, so didn't love this one. I also ended up reading really quickly The Bromance Book Club by Alyssa K. Adams. This one is so cute. It's basically about Gavin. His wife has just threatened him with a divorce. Everything kind of came to a head when she told him that she had been faking her orgasms for some time. And so his friends and a couple of other people he is going to become friends with, they introduce him to the idea of a historical romance, or not historical romance, a romance book club where they learn lessons from romance books because they're smart enough to realize that sometimes like what women want is really in those books, and it's so good. I enjoyed it so much. It made me smile a lot. I love the secondary characters a lot, especially the secondary characters who make up the main couple in the second book, which I'm super excited about. And I just thought it was sweet. It's another second chance romance story that I felt really like hit the spot and made me happy, so I'm glad I read it. Today I'm starting 2 different books. I'll be starting The Never Tilting World by Rinja Pecco, which I have on Kindle, which I'm reading with Mel from Mel to the Any. Very excited about that because it sounds so good. I'm pretty sure it's about a world that's split in 2, where there's one side in the light and one side in the dark, and it's so exciting. And then I will also be starting Keeper of the Lost Cities by Shannon Messenger, which is a story about Sophie, who discovers that she has an elven heritage and ends up getting sent to a school. And I'm super excited because I know Kristen loved this one, and Mackie really likes the story even though he doesn't love the ship, so cannot wait to check this one out. Okay, gonna check in later. Bye! Good morning, friends! I started reading The Never Tilting World by Rinja Pecco, and I'm reading that one with Mel from Mel to the Any. And it's basically pitched as Frozen meets Mad Max, but it's really about 2 separate parts of a world that were divided during an event called the Breaking, and there are twin sisters, twin goddesses, that are supposed to enact this ritual in order to protect and preserve their world. And something happened during the last Breaking that kept the twins of this current generation apart, except now they're both convinced to make their way towards where the abyss is, where the Breaking happened. I'm really, really enjoying it and cannot wait to continue the series. Good morning, everybody! So I have a reading update. I have continued reading The Never Tilting World by Rinja Pecco, and it's really good so far, and I'm really enjoying it. I really like the world she came up with, but most of all, I'm enjoying the 4 characters that we get to read from in the story. They're so much fun, and both Mel and I are really liking this one, so that's a really good sign. Cannot wait to keep going on with that one. And yesterday, I binge read the entirety of Keeper of the Lost Cities by Shannon Messenger. You probably heard Mackie talk about this one, but basically it's about 12-year-old Sophie who discovers right at the beginning of the book that she's actually an elf. And so she gets whisked away into the world of the elves, and she is to attend elf school, or Foxfire, basically, which is a school for the nobility among the elves. And while she's there, she uncovers the fact that maybe there's more to her than she even knows, and that there's an entire conspiracy that is set to mess up the dynamic of the elven world. And it's fun, it's action-packed, which is really exciting. I enjoyed the school aspects, but I also enjoyed the unraveling of the conspiracy. I really liked Sophie as a main character, and I enjoyed all her friends. I do have a bias about who I think Sophie should be interested in, but that's just me. It was so much fun, and it was so easy to read, so obviously I flew through that one, and here we are. So today, because I did fly through that book, I'm going to be starting The Grace Year by Kim Liggett. Good morning, friends. Oh, if you can see balloons. Those are a gift from my sisters on our anniversary last Sunday. So I just came back so I could talk about what I'm reading. I want to talk about The Grace Year by Kim Liggett, which I actually started reading yesterday. This is the kind of book that you will be uncomfortable reading it. That's just the setup, that's how it is. And I knew that going in, so it doesn't bother me as much and I can keep going. But I have to tell you, it's kind of brutal reading it. Basically, the entire premise of the book is that once you turn, I think 16, you're sent off to live women are sent off to live a grace year. And the grace year is for them to expend all the magic that they have so that they can't coerce or force or do anything to the men of the village. And when they come back, some of them become wives, some of them become laborers, some of them don't come back at all. And it's creepy and like weird, and like I can't figure out like what is actually going on and what's real and what's not. And that part has me like turning the pages. I can't say that I'm enjoying it because again, it's like one of those stories where I'm just like, everyone is so terrible to each other and like I don't trust anything in this story. And so I will keep reading it. I'm about halfway through it. We'll see how it goes. And that's pretty much all the reading update I have today. Oh, I'm gonna show you my shirt. I love it. This is from Shawn Mendes' tour because why not? Yay, check-in time. I actually have the camera set up because we're gonna be filming very soon. There are a couple of videos that I'm excited about, and this shirt will not be a spoiler by the time you see this video, but just wanted to show it off anyway. It's the Sorcerer's Stone out of print shirt, and I love it. I will link to it down below in case you are interested in it. But I will quickly run you through what I've been reading. So I started and finished The Grace Year this week, and I'm still processing all my thoughts about that book, but suffice to say, it was not quite what I expected it to be. It had a pretty strong start, and I was really intrigued at first, but then it got weird. And I'll try to go into more detail into what we read, but it definitely went in a direction that I didn't personally enjoy, and so now I'm just like, gotta move on. So I also finished reading Undying by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner, which is the sequel to Unearthed, and I liked it. I think it was interesting to see how everything ended after the events in Unearthed, which is the first book. And I also listened to this one on audio, and it was still narrated by Alex McKenna and Steve West, and they did a fantastic job. There's also a third narrator, I forget his name right now, but he also did a really good job with the character he voiced. I think personally that the two books could have just been one really long book. There's just something about the way that the plot was done where it felt like two parts of one whole. And I guess that's what a duology is essentially. And I understand where they split it because I think it's a good spot to split if you were going to split. But I definitely think it could have just been one long book. I think story-wise this would have translated for me personally better as film. So I hope it does get made. It's going to be a fun one to watch. I am glad I actually went the audio route with it because it actually brought the story a little bit more to life for me. Alex and Steve are both excellent narrators, and they really did justice to Amelia and Jules, and I enjoyed it more because I was listening to it. So I would recommend doing that route if you're going to try out this series. Yeah, glad I finally got to this. I also started reading Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. Finally. I think you guys have probably heard me talk about this a couple of times and put it on a couple of TBRs with Kristen. We're supposed to buddy read this. This is for a series called The Band, and in it, it's basically one of the members of this band of mercenaries from ages and ages ago. Their band was called The Saga. His name is Gabriel, and he comes to beg Clay Cooper, who is another member of the band, to join him on a quest to save or rescue his daughter Rose, who is stuck in a besieged city. And so they have to get the old band back together and get things done. And so far it's interesting. I find the writing style is not particularly my cup of tea. It reminds me a little bit of the way I feel about Brandon Sanderson and V. Schwab's books, because there's a sparseness to the writing that it doesn't necessarily not work for the story, but it's not something I personally look for in my books. I also find it funny because like the way this one is, it's kind of simple, like the writing and the words and stuff like that, even though there are a lot of like fantasy terms thrown in here and there. I so far have really enjoyed meeting the characters. I've met 3 of the band so far, 4 technically, and they're all, it's interesting to see where they have all gotten to after their glory years, so I'm curious to see how else it plays out. I am currently 10 chapters in, which is about that far, so I've got quite a ways to go, and I will keep you guys updated on that, but I'm glad we're finally reading it. And tomorrow I'll be starting 2 things. First is The Darkest Part of the Forest by Holly Black, which is for Fairy-a-thon. I am so looking forward to this because I know Kristen and Jane and Melanie all love this book so much. I have never read it, but I am dying to. I really hope it goes better than the modern fairy tales did. So good luck to us. I'll include the breakdown. I'm really looking forward to it. Hopefully you guys will see my thoughts on this as well. And I will also be listening to Artemis Fowl by Ian Colfer because I just want to listen to Artemis Fowl. It's a relatively short audiobook, a little under 7 hours I want to say, or a little past 6 hours. So I think I should blast through that one pretty quick. I would like to read it because I'd like to know if it's one of those childhood series that I missed out on that I would want to continue. So yeah, those are my reading updates. I'm also very, very tired, so pardon my appearance. I just got back from apple picking with my sisters. We went up to Massacre Orchards. It was really fun, but it was really hot. And you know, it's early in the season, so not a lot of the different varieties were ripe, but it was still very fun. And then yesterday I went on like a super cleaning binge. I cleaned up shelves a little, I got rid of some books, cleaned and tidied our household. My candles are now back on a shelf, which is great for me. So yeah, that's the update. We should be filming soon, so talk to y'all later. I just finished making, or baking, creating an apple pie with my sisters because we had so many apples from when we went apple picking, so we'll see how that goes. But since this is a bookish channel and we talk about reading a lot, I guess we're going to talk about all the books that I read today. So first, I actually listened to the entire audiobook for Artemis Fowl by Ian Colfer, and it was so entertaining. I honestly knew nothing about the series except that Artemis Fowl is kind of a very young genius who takes advantage of the world of fairy, or at least that's what I thought it was, and it is that essentially. I think it was such a great idea to go with the audiobook route because it made it so much more entertaining. The narrator really brought the characters to life, and I really enjoyed hearing about all of their hijinks. Also, it's very short because it's a children's book, and it's not very long at all. Yeah, Artemis is kind of a prat. Holly's pretty cool. I enjoyed Butler, but most of all I enjoyed Commander Root and Foley, and I look forward to actually continuing on with this series. I'm sad I didn't read this when I was a kid. I don't know why I didn't, but now I'm going to be fixing that. Apart from that, I actually read chapters 1 to 5 of The Darkest Part of the Forest by Holly Black. This is this month's Fairy-a-thon read, and I have to tell you, from the very first sentence, I was super intrigued. The first sentence, as many of you readers may know, goes, "Down a path worn into the woods, past a stream and a hollowed-out log full of pill-bugs and termites, was a glass coffin. It rested right on the ground, and in it slept a boy with horns on his head and ears as pointed as knives." It's the first paragraph, actually, not sentence, but it's so good, and it's atmospheric. The first chapter was a little bit like off-putting for me. It was weird because it kind of reminded me a little bit of Tithe and the other modern fairy tales because it's a very modern day world and the characters are from this modern day world, except that in this one we're inching closer to them being more involved with the world of the Fae. So yeah, that was interesting. I do like the setting a lot, and I feel like it's pretty atmospheric, and the way she's setting up these characters, Ben and Hazel, is so interesting to me, and I'm curious to see where it goes. So looking forward to continuing that. I also continued reading Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. It's definitely growing more on me. It took a couple of chapters to get there, but we are getting there. I think it's because at the beginning I think I was a little thrown off by like how immediately a setup it was and everything, but I feel like it's, if you look at it from the perspective of a D&D campaign, like you have to set the scene, set up the characters, put them into position. You'll enjoy it more like I did. I am enjoying it a lot more now, and I am looking forward to seeing where it goes from here. So yeah, that is my reading update. I gotta wait 30 more minutes for this pie, so we shall see how it goes. Good morning, friends! Okay, time for a reading update. First, I am 2/5 of the way through Darkest Part of the Forest, and I'm really enjoying it. It is definitely way more immediately atmospheric and interesting to me than any of the modern fairy tales were, and I'm definitely dying to see what happens now that I've met the prince in the book. I did not continue reading Kings of the Wild yesterday, unfortunately, because I got home a little late and I was also very tired because I hadn't slept enough the night before, so that one I will be continuing today. However, I did start reading Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo because I also brought it with me. I want to get to this one before it comes out. And my immediate reaction, and I told my friends this, my immediate reaction upon starting it was that it reminded me so much of how Erin Morgenstern's stories feel. Like the vibe is very similar even though the story is very different. It specifically made me think of The Starless Sea, which I read a couple of months ago, but in a good way, and so far I'm really into it. I am surprisingly enjoying it. There's definitely a lot of adult themes and adult actions in here, like drugs, There's definitely a lot of trigger warning things like drugs and violence and abuse and murder and the occult and all of that crazy stuff. But so far I'm very intrigued to see where it goes. I don't know how I'm gonna feel about the rest of it, but I guess we're gonna find out. Yeah, so that is where I'm at with my reading so far. I will update you guys later. Goodbye. Good morning, friends, and happy Friday. I am wearing a Banff shirt, which is very exciting to me. But anyway, this is supposed to be a reading update, but before I get to that, so Mackie and I recently saw some of the Full Metal Alchemist Funkos, but then when we went online to look for them, there was this one and we couldn't resist it, and it was the first one we bought. It's Alphonse with cats. Okay, like, Alphonse Elric is the younger brother in the series, and he is the cinnamoniest cinnamon roll ever, and it's just so perfect that he has cats. But anyway, on to the actual reading. So yesterday night I actually managed to finish Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. Finally. I've been saying I was going to read this book for like forever, and it was so entertaining. It took me a while to really get into it, and at the beginning I was kind of concerned that I wasn't going to enjoy it as much as I had thought I would, but by the ending I really shouldn't have worried because it was just really fun. It was like reading about a D&D game where either they rolled a lot of natural ones or a lot of natural 20s, or they just had a lot of banter, and it just made me so nostalgic for playing D&D, which we haven't done in a while, and just it was fun. And I am actually looking forward to reading the next book, Bloody Rose, but this was really fun. And then I also made my way a little bit through Ninth House. I don't have much more to go, and I might be able to finish this today, but anyway, so far I'm really enjoying how the story is playing out. I know it's a lot slower than a lot of people expected because it's supposed to be a story where the main character is investigating these 9 specific houses that deal with the occult at Yale, and there is a murder that she's trying to figure out and investigate and see if it's connected. But for me, it just reminds me a lot of how stories like The Starless Sea are constructed, where it is slow, but there is a build-up. This one is particularly character heavy versus being story heavy, which I think in The Starless Sea it's kind of an equal balance of both, but I think it's more story and world heavy. So I am really enjoying it. I will say that I did read a very disturbing scene in Ninth House that made me want to go and take a shower and just wash it out of my mind, and I think it's partly because A, it was truly horrifying, and even though I had an inkling that it was coming because I had seen some people mention it already as part of the content warnings, it still was horrifying to me. And it's also because I don't really expose myself to a lot of stuff like that because it usually stresses me out. So yeah, I'm just gonna mention that now. It happens at some point in this first big chunk. I'm not gonna tell you when, but yeah, very disturbing. And then this morning on my way to work, I should be finishing The Darkest Part of the Forest by Holly Black. I can't believe I'm almost done. This one was so good. I'm so glad I finally read it. I'm so glad we did Fairy-a-thon and that I am reading this because I really enjoyed it. After The Modern Fairy Tales, I was a little skeptical because I'm like, I didn't enjoy that one so much, but I am really liking this one, and I am super glad that we read it. The live show is happening tomorrow, which I'm very excited about. You guys will probably see it by the time this vlog goes up. What else am I going to say? Oh yeah, so I made myself a very, very, very intense reading plan for the last 10 days of September because I'm determined to finish as many of my TBR books as I can. We'll see if I actually stick to it. That is what remains to be seen, so guess we'll find out. Hello friends, so Saturday night just did the Fairy-a-thon live show with Kristen and Jane and Mel, and it was really fun. We talked about The Darkest Part of the Forest and lots of other things, but you should go and watch that. It'll be linked down below. Anyway, I just wanted to quickly say that I finished reading Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, as well as The Darkest Part of the Forest, which I'm not sure right now where it is, but both books are really good. The Darkest Part of the Forest is so delightful. It's a standalone fantasy. So good, the themes are so good, the characters are so good, and I can really see how Holly has improved writing about fairies since her first series. Guess what? Mackie, tell them what you're reading.
Tell them? As you're showing.
He's reading The Cruel Prince! He's reading The Cruel Prince! Well, let's see if he actually continues reading The Cruel Prince. We're gonna find out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Ninth House. This is the one of the very few books that I have read where I viscerally, physically reacted to things that happened in it. and I was mentally prepared in a way for them because I knew this book was going to be really dark going into it and gritty and adult and like terrible things happen in it, and I actually got explicit confirmation on what the terrible scenes were. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that. Otherwise, the story was compelling enough to keep me going, and I definitely need to know what happens in the next book, so take that as you will. Anyway, the actual real reason I also filmed this is because I started reading The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt, which is a very, very long book. Well, not that long, it's like 700 and something pages long. This is the book that my cousin Carmela picked for me to read for September, and so far it's interesting. It reminds me a little bit of how Erin Morgenstern writes, and a little bit of how Ninth House was written as well, where you start with some incident that doesn't seem important with details that are very like specific, but I feel like it's building up to something, and I'm curious to see where that goes, so we shall see. Reading vlog update. Happy Sunday, friends. I did not read more of The Goldfinch yet today, but I did finish reading the entirety of Slay by Brittany Morris, which was good. Not a new favorite, but good. It definitely has a lot of the hallmarks of the typical YA, I guess, contemporary with a touch of sci-fi because of the gaming part, but I really liked that it sort of explored the idea of being black and black culture, and has the main character really struggling to come to terms with what her experience of it is, very specifically. So yeah, that was really interesting to me, and I'll talk more about this in a wrap-up, but definitely a good book to check out. Meanwhile, what are you reading? Guys, look, Mackie's made it to the Wicked King already, and he's halfway through. He read The Cruel Prince yesterday in one sitting, much like I did when I first read it. I'm going to pick up The Goldfinch later before I go to sleep. It's going to become the book I read before I go to sleep. But right now I'm going to start Red Sister by Mark Lawrence, which I am very much looking forward to. Assassin Nuns. Can't go wrong.
Welcome to the Third Wheel vlog, presenting Rach, Lex, and Max.
Ooh! Good morning. This is my usual morning view now, apparently, for you guys. Anyway, I wanted to talk about how I actually managed to finish The Goldfinch. This was the book that my cousin Carmela chose for me to read in the month of September, and I finished it. So I partly read it and as a physical book, and then I partly listened to the audiobook, which I got from the library. And here's the thing about the story, and I tried to explain the entirety of this story to Maki yesterday. It's about a guy who, when he was a little boy, was in this big incident that happened in the Met because there was a bombing, and he inadvertently took this painting of a goldfinch. And it chronicles the rest of his life spiraling out from that particular starting point. And it's weird because, like, it's not that the characters are necessarily likable, particularly main character Theo. Like, I don't love Theo, but I couldn't stop reading this either. There's just something about the way it was written that it kept drawing me in, and I just wanted to know how it would all play out. I hesitate to say that it's like watching a train wreck, but it almost is, because like there are a lot of bad choices and bad decisions made in this book. And yet you kind of sort of see like where the starting point for those choices and decisions were, so there's that. I still have a lot of complicated feelings about that. I also finished Red Sister by Mark Lawrence yesterday. It was really fun. I enjoyed it. It reminds me a little bit of reading like Alana, Tamara Pierce's Song of Lioness Quartet. I mean, which is funny because Tamara Pierce is the person who blurbed it. I don't know if you guys can see that. There you go. Anyway, so I really enjoyed that. I thought it was really fun, and I like seeing Nona and her time at the Sisters of Mercy convent as she trains to become one of the sisters. I did feel like a lot of it was definitely very familiar. I've seen it done before, and it's not anything new, but I was interested enough to keep on going, and I think I will be continuing this series. I wanted to love this one as much as other people have, but I don't, so unfortunate. Yesterday, because I finished the audio of The Goldfinch pretty early on, I started listening to the audio for Lair of Dreams by Libba Bray. I am behind on reading this book, but 27 pages in and I'm already like intrigued by where it's gonna go now, so I will keep on listening to that today. January Lavoie is still the narrator, and she still brings this story to life so much. And then I also started reading Circe by Madeline Miller. This is my last book for the Owls. It was quite enjoyable. I read 2 chapters and I'm already like interested in seeing what's going to happen. So far, this is my first encounter with Madeline Miller's writing, and I like it a lot. And I also started reading The Beautiful by Renee Ahdieh, which I like flew through those first few chapters-ish, just because the writing is so easy to get into, and I'm very intrigued. I know Kristen and Bethany both really like that one, so hopefully I will too. Anyway, that's my update for now. Bye! Good morning, friends! This is me in my pajamas on a Saturday morning. Best place to be. Anyway, yesterday, oh, I put the books away already, but yesterday I finished reading Circe, which was really good. I enjoyed seeing Madeline Miller's take on Greek mythological, it's too early guys, I haven't even had coffee, on Greek mythological Greek mythological characters, particularly Circe. It was very interesting to see her take on that story, and I liked seeing how she wove it all together into something. And I also really enjoyed just seeing all these events play out. Well, enjoy is not the right word. It was just interesting to see how they all played out. And then I also finished reading The Beautiful by Renee Ahdieh yesterday, and it was fun. It was like reading an older, like YA paranormal romance type thing. It gave me a lot of Originals and Vampire Diaries vibes, which was fun, but also like, I was like, okay, I can guess what's gonna happen here, and I'm gonna guess what's gonna happen there. So it was a little bit predictable for me, but I still had fun reading it. And I am curious to see what will happen after the ending. So I plan to finish Lair of Dreams this morning, and then I am going to binge read all 3 of the Legend graphic novels in preparation for Rebel, which is out next week, which is very exciting. All right, I'm gonna check in later. Goodbye.